Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team now. Let's get into the news. No one in Detroit could have guessed that the night would split history in two. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind that drifts by without consequence until it didn't. Until ESPN detonated the notification that would tear through the NFL like a shockwave ripping. Open the sky, Bombana NFL, ESPN Guarante, AJ. Brown fetch a como es Detroit Lions para virar Armalito de Dan Campbell. The headline didn't break. It erupted, it screamed across every smartphone, forced its way into every living room, and froze the league under its sheer weight. Fans went silent, analysts stuttered, rival executives threw their hands to their heads in disbelief because A.J. Brown wasn't just a wide receiver, he wasn't just a star, he was violence packaged into footwork. He was pressure in human form, a living mismatch, a force who dragged entire secondaries into chaos. And now, impossibly, dangerously, unforgivably, he was a Detroit Lion. The tremors didn't fade. They escalated. Reporters scrambled to verify. But the confirmation was already seared into the public consciousness. A.J. Brown, the deep ball dominator, the yards after contact menace, the man who ran routes like he was splitting timelines apart, had chosen Detroit, and the signature on that contract was more than ink. It was a declaration, a warning, a rewriting of expectations. Dan Campbell, the man who spoke in metaphors of pain and glory, had finally acquired the weapon he'd been craving. Not a gadget player, not a promising rookie, a punishing, relentless, battle-forged receiver who treated contested catches like personal vendettas. A.J. Brown didn't simply run routes, he carved them. He didn't catch passes, he inflicted them. And that was the part the league wasn't ready for. Detroit had already evolved under Campbell into one of the most emotionally charged teams in football, a group built on grit, stubbornness, and the kind of collective courage that made opponents uncomfortable. But now, with Brown stepping into the locker room, Detroit's offense shifted from unpredictable to inevitable, from turbulent to terrifying, from dangerous to unholy. You could feel the tone change in press conferences, even before the trade call was finalized. A rumor leaked that Campbell's reaction wasn't celebration, it was satisfaction, as if he'd been waiting for this exact player, at this exact moment, to complete something he had been constructing silently and meticulously since the day he took the job. But behind the scenes, the story grew darker. Sources whispered about a meeting held deep within the bowels of Allen Park, hours before the announcement, a meeting where offensive coordinator Ben Johnson reportedly turned off the lights, played a compilation of Brown's most brutal highlights, and let the room drown in the tension. A.J. slicing through coverage, A.J. trucking a safety, A.J. planting his foot and exploding into open field. When the screen went black, Campbell stood and said one sentence: "Bring me that, not bring me him, not let's negotiate. Just bring me that." The violence, the fire, the refusal to be stopped. The essence of a player who turned broken tackles into psychological warfare. Executives didn't sleep after that meeting. They worked through the night, making calls that were never logged, sending messages that would never be recoverable. Detroit didn't chase the trade, they orchestrated it. They didn't negotiate, they hunted. And when opposing teams realized what was happening, it was too late. The Lions had moved with the precision of a predator closing in on its prey. When the Jets, rumored to be quietly exploring receiver upgrades, hesitated, Detroit struck. When whispers surfaced that a different franchise was preparing an offer, Detroit drowned them. When a last-minute attempt surfaced to block the trade, Detroit bulldozed through it. By the time the paperwork hit the league office, the fate of the NFC North had already shifted. Detroit fans outside Ford Field screamed into the cold night air. Some cried, some fell to their knees. Some simply stared at the stadium with the quiet disbelief of people witnessing prophecy fulfilled. Because everyone knew what A.J. Brown meant for this team. This wasn't a move for show. This wasn't a PR stunt. This wasn't even a statement. This was a weapon, a jagged, ruthless, uncontainable weapon placed directly into the hands of a coach who demanded bloodshed on the scoreboard. And in that moment, the entire NFL understood that Detroit didn't just get better. They became a threat. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update. And you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. But the real story, the one that would seep into podcasts, fan forums, late-night debates, and the whispered conversations of defensive coordinators started weeks earlier, long before ESPN blew the lid off the trade. It began in a closed-door strategy session where Detroit's front office assembled, not to discuss prospects, not to analyze cap space, but to confront a truth they had felt growing like a storm front. They were one player away, one emotional anchor, one offensive fulcrum, one destructive piece who could tilt games simply by stepping onto the field. And the player whose name rose above the rest wasn't just talented, he was catalytic. He was transformative. He was notorious for redefining expectations. A.J. Brown. Film sessions became rituals. Coaches studied Brown's roots frame by frame, not just for his technique but for the psychological effects he had on defenders. Safeties drifted out of alignment. Corners hesitated. Linebackers overcommitted. Entire defenses collapsed because of one man's gravitational force. Campbell said nothing during these sessions. He didn't need to. Everyone in the room felt the electricity. Everyone understood that Brown wasn't just a luxury piece, he was inevitability embodied. He played like a prophecy. He moved like consequence, and Detroit, a franchise desperate to rewrite decades of suffering, wanted that inevitability on their side. What no one outside the building knew was that Brown wanted them to, or at least, he wanted something Detroit offered that few other franchises could match. A culture forged in suffering, welded in defiance, and sharpened by a coach who refused to let his players hide behind excuses. NFL insiders later leaked that Brown had quietly admired Detroit's rise not because of the stats or the wins, but because of the identity, the movement, the emotional force that made the Lions feel less like a football team and more like a rebellion. And when he learned Detroit was exploring options, he didn't say no. Negotiations turned into a chess match played with daggers. Philadelphia made countersteps. Other teams circled like vultures, but Detroit didn't blink. They didn't back down. They executed a plan so precise that rival executives would later describe it as terrifying. Calls were timed to the minute. Offers were structured like traps. Contingencies were layered like armor. Every move Detroit made pushed the league closer to chaos. And the moment the Eagles hesitated whether over money, personality clashes, or internal philosophy, Detroit slipped through the cracks. Like smoke, the Lions didn't just pull off the trade, they pulled it off with intent so sharp, so cold, so calculated that it shook even the most seasoned observers. And when the deal was finalized, Campbell's reaction wasn't explosive, it wasn't celebratory, it wasn't even emotional, it was stillness, focus, a quiet smile that carried the weight of an army. He walked into the offensive meeting room, put Brown's photo up on the projector, and said a sentence that would later leak and send chills down the spine of anyone who read it. "We're not hoping to win anymore, we're taking wins." Defensive coordinators around the league reacted instantly. Some cursed, some laughed nervously, some opened whiskey bottles at 3 a.m. out of pure fear, because Brown didn't just change matchups, he detonated them. He single-handedly forced defenses into shell coverage, he forced personnel shifts, he forced safeties to cheat. And now he would be paired with a Detroit offense already known for its unpredictability, physicality, and ruthless creativity. He would line up next to players who thrive on chaos. He would be coached by a man who believed football should hurt emotionally, strategically, spiritually. By morning, ESPN analysts weren't discussing the trade, they were mourning defensive backs. Talking heads used phrases like career-altering, conference-warping, and the most dangerous Lions offense in franchise history. Rumors circulated that one NFC North coordinator walked into his facility, tossed the remote at the projection screen, and muttered, "We're screwed." Fans of rival teams flooded social media with denial, rage, humor, and fear. Detroit fans, meanwhile, understood something deeper. This was the moment their team crossed a threshold. The moment hope became expectation. The moment expectation became intimidation, because A.J. Brown didn't come to Detroit to catch passes. He came to change Sundays, to turn contested balls into psychological warfare, to rip the heart out of defensive schemes, to become the weapon Campbell had been waiting for since the day he arrived. A weapon that wasn't just used, it was unleashed. And as dawn broke over Michigan, casting long shadows across Ford Field, a single truth echoed through every corner of the NFL. Detroit didn't just get a superstar, they got a problem no one knows how to solve. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.